Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Allison and I am a Nessian stan. I've decided to wear the girl who stole too much from the cauldron shirt, which has Cassian and the cauldron on it, and my siphons, and red for Cassian because I'm kind of obsessed. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my crackpot theories for the new book, A Court of Silver Flames, which is Nesta and Cassian's story in the ACOSF world. I'm so excited for this book. I love Nesta. Nesta is very close to my heart. She has a lot of me in her that I see myself in her. She just has a lot of the same personality traits as me, and her coping mechanisms, I hate to admit it, but a couple of her coping mechanisms are the same as mine were at one point in my life. So Nesta's very special to me. I wanted to talk about my theories because I did this for a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and it was super fun, and I like to look back and see if I was right on anything. Now, I'm not going to speak on the leaked 6 chapters that have been leaked because I don't want to. So I'm gonna kind of steer away from that, but all of these thoughts I had already had beforehand. That being said, this is going to be spoilery for the ACOSF series. Obviously, there's a part that is spoilery for Throne of Glass, but I will put a picture of Throne of Glass on the screen when I'm talking about them. But let's just get on into this because this is going to be a long video. And by long video, I mean I have 3 pages of notes, one being on my phone. Let's start with the obvious elephant in the room, which is Nesta and Cassian are mates? ? I just don't see it going any other way, and I have truly thought about this in depth and talked to a lot of friends about this. They're mates, but I believe that they're kind of a different type of mate, and I don't think Nesta is going to reject Cassian. I've seen a lot of people say, well, she's going to reject the mating bond. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think the person who would reject the mating bond might be Elaine, if we're going with the Elaine and Lucian Azriel love triangle and she goes with Az, but like, I'm just not down for that. I know I'm weird. I just think it's weird that all 3 Bat Boys are going to be with all 3 Archeron sisters. Like, that's just, it's too pretty for me. I think that needs to be, she just needs to go with Lucian. But I'll get into that later. I think the bond already clicked for Cass at least, or at least Cass knows it's clicked. I don't necessarily know if Nesta would recognize that because she hasn't grown up hearing about the mating bond and, you know, been around that. So I don't think she will necessarily realize it, but I think it clicked right before the meeting in ACOSF, and I will pull out the scene that it did. So if you want to follow along with me, this is page 398 in ACOSF, and this is right before they go to the High Lord's meeting, and you know, Cassian comes over and he's like, hello Nesta, and they're about to go to this meeting, and this is what happens. Moore was waiting, watching so closely, every muscle tense. She again reached for his arm, but Cassian angled out of reach, not tearing his eyes from Nesta's burning gaze. Nesta blurted, "You didn't have to come too." She stopped herself. The world seemed to go utterly still at that interrupted sentence, nothing and no one more so than Cassian. He scanned her face as if fiercely reading some battle report. Moore watched as Cassian took Nesta's slim hand in his own, interlacing his fingers as he folded his wings and blindly reached his other hand back towards Moore in a silent order to transport them. Cassian's eyes did not leave Nesta's, nor did hers leave his. There was no warmth, no tenderness on either of their faces, only that raging intensity that blended a component and understanding and fire. I think that's when the mating bond clicked. I really do. There is a moment that Sarah wrote, and there's a reason why Cassian and Nesta had that intense moment that everyone was like, y'all gonna have your moment, but like we're gonna leave to the High Lords meeting now. And then I think battle with Hybern, you know, the big battle at the end of the thing, where I think that there is very clear indications that Nesta and Cassian were communicating through a bond of sorts in the battle, because why would Cassian know exactly what Nesta was going to do? I mean, I know he's a general and everything, but I just feel like there's something more there. And then his love proclamation where he says, the one thing I regret is not having enough time. In the next world I will find you and we will have all the time. That's not verbatim, but that is the gist of the quote. I think that they have a bond, and maybe this is a different type of mating bond because Nesta was made by the cauldron and we haven't seen what she can do. That being said, does the cauldron being broken have an effect on Nesta and her powers? Or is she just going to continue to have those powers? We'll have to see. Next thing, the box. The gosh darn box that Cassian threw away and we never knew what's inside that box. If they don't mention what was in that box, I'm going to lose it. Because I've been racking my brain about what could be in this box, because it was obviously something special for Nesta, something meaningful, but I don't think it can be that meaningful where he was just gonna throw it away. It's not something of her father's. It's not something that he kept from, you know, his 900 years of living. That's probably an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. It's not something sentimental that it could be. I think it was some kind of small piece. It was in a box, so it wouldn't have been like a dagger, you know, love. Get your lover a dagger for Valentine's Day. And I don't think it was jewelry, because I just don't think Cassian would get Nesta jewelry. But I'm quite curious to see what that is in the box. Someone said it would be really funny if it was like one of those shrunken heads from Harry Potter and it was like a shrunken head of Hybern. I giggled at that. But yeah, what do you think is in the box? Because I'd love to know. Next, let's talk about Amren, our favorite scary little fae now. Something happened between Amren and Nesta. Something big. I don't know what this could be. They had a fight on the barge, I believe, or somewhere. They were on like a boat, had this fight, and this has destroyed Amren and Nesta's relationship. She doesn't go to see Nesta anymore. Nesta doesn't see Amren anymore. Amren refuses to train her. I'm very confused about what could have pushed Amren so close to the edge, because I feel like Amren is so old that there's like very little that could like make her this angry. I mean, yeah, she gets ticked off, but like I feel like she's angry at Nesta, but she wasn't at the stage where she's like, I'm gonna kill you for this. And I do see that Amren doing that. So I'm curious what this idea has happened. And that being said, Amren's backstory was never flushed out. I'm going to put the book for Throne of Glass right here. Don't want to hear spoilers for that series. Move along until this is gone. But Amren's story was never flushed out. And there is a moment in, I believe it's Empire of Storms, where Aelin mentions that the goddess she is battling, I think it's Deanna. I could be totally wrong. There's a lot of gods and goddesses in that series. Whatever. That this goddess had silver flames. She like shot through the air in silver flames, and it was very reminiscent of Amren. I'm curious if Amren could be a part of maybe the Throne of Glass world. I know Sarah has said that she doesn't want to cross over, but I feel like she's lying to us because she wants to keep it secret, because she crossed over Kingdom of Ash and she showed us that these realms don't necessarily run at the same timeline. So could this realm of ACOTAR be after the Throne of Glass realm and run at a different timeline? And when Aelin fell through the sky and Rhys was like, be gone, is that just a different time period? Because why would Sarah reference all of these moments of silver flames? Why would she continuously give us this imagery if she wasn't going to use it in the long run? So I really do think that maybe Amren is from that universe or that realm. Maybe we're going to read up on the gods and goddesses and have a little reminiscent of Terrasen and, you know, all of that, but not really cross over into that, and it'll just be like a fun little nod to us. But I'm interested to find out more about Amren's background. I'm going to talk about our favorite High Fae, which is obviously Tamlin. And what happened with him and Rhys in A Court of Frost and Starlight. This is the moment that I was very angry with Rhys in this book. This stupid novella turned my perception of Rhys forever. I don't agree with Rhys going to see Tamlin and kind of rubbing in Tamlin's face all the things that he has. Because if you look at Tamlin and Rhys, they went down very different paths. Rhys went down the path, you know, with Amarantha under the mountain, but he came out and he had a family and the inner circle and, you know, all of that to keep him level, and Feyre kind of brought him out of that darkness. Tamlin, on the other hand, went through all of that, lost all of his family, only really had Lucien, which Lucien's not around anymore, and went through everything with Amarantha, watched the person he loved, which was Feyre, die, and then watch her just go off with the Night Court. And he's now alone in the Spring Court. Absolutely alone. He sends away the servants. Lucien can't get through to him. And Rhys comes waltzing in his black leather pants, being like, I'm angry with you. And you can see that Rhys could have turned out like that. He could have been like the Rhys in the Court of Nightmares, but he had people to pull him out of that. Unfortunately, Tamlin did not have that. That being said, I think Rhys's little escapade into the Spring Court where he really like berated Tamlin is gonna come back and bite us in the ass. I just do. I think we're gonna need Tamlin for something. I think something is going to be needed, or Tamlin's gonna be the only person that can do something for us, and it's gonna come back and bite us in the ass. Or he's gonna be working with the Mortal Queens, which, don't we just love those Mortal Queens? I can definitely see that happening as well, but I think that whole scene and everything that's happened with Tamlin is going to come back and bite us. I just have a feeling. Next is the Autumn Court. This obviously is a big thing. Eris is in the, you know, sneak preview. He's dancing with Nesta. The colors are gray and orange, and they are very reminiscent of the Autumn Court as well. I think big changes are going to be happening in the Autumn Court. I think Lucien is going to gain the power. I think Lucien is going to be the next Autumn Court's High Lord. I just have this feeling. Or Eris is going to play a bigger part, and I don't know what that part is. I think we're going to find out why Eris did what he did to Mor, because I think there's a lot more to that than just being Eris and being in the Autumn Court. I think there's more to that background, and I think we saw that in the meeting in the Court of Nightmares in Echo War, and I'm curious to see what it is. Or he's just a douchebag. Quite possible as well. What about Nesta as a whole? I know Nesta is not people's favorite character. She's mine. And I really love her. And I think she is a very complex character that you have to look at it in a full circle way, because her story is not over. And I think another thing we can acknowledge is Feyre isn't the hero in Nesta's story. Nesta has to be the hero in her own story, and that's just it. I have been listening to the ACOSF audiobooks, and I'm really watching background characters this time, because the first time I read the books I just kind of, you know, focused on Feyre and Tamlin and Rhys, and that was that. But I have very much been focusing on those background characters like Mor and Cassian and Azriel and Nesta, you know, and Elaine too. I really have been, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. One of my things is, from the moment we meet Nesta and Elaine as well, Feyre has already put distrust in their characters towards us. She, you know, introduced Nesta and she says she's born with a sneer on her face, and she just takes Nesta and makes her into this villainous character in her story, because that's how Feyre sees it. But Nesta's version of events is very different, I can only assume, with what has occurred. I also really like this line that Feyre said about Nesta and herself. Some days I couldn't tell which one of us was the most wretched and bitter. And that's very true. I think Feyre got to go on her adventure and she got to grow as a person. You know, she was the one that got to grow into herself the most, and Nesta hasn't gotten to do that. Nesta's always been, you know, in this bitter, resentful way, and she learned a lot of that with her mother. Her mother was bitter and angry and not loving to them. That's how she's described, and I think Nesta learned a lot of her mannerisms from her mother, and she is kind of transformed into a version of her mother, and Feyre and Elaine were too young to really latch onto those, or they latched onto their dad's personalities. Another thing is Feyre painted flames on Nesta's drawer, which I think could definitely reminisce her, either her silver flames or Cassian, and I just think that's wonderful. But going into more of like Nesta in future books, I think we look at Nesta and we only see a surface level of her. We don't see the different things she did. Nesta was literally willing to sacrifice herself for everyone on that battlefield. She was willing to sacrifice herself with Cassian when Hybern was going to kill them. I think Nesta definitely cares too much, and she's scared that if she cares too much about one person that she's going to hurt them and destroy that, and so she definitely uses her brutal way and her, you know, hatefulness to make people jump 10 feet away from her so she can keep people at arm's length, because she's not willing to let them in, and she doesn't know how to, you know, let go of the trauma that she's obtained. Which, let's talk about some of her trauma that people forget is a laundry list, and this is going to be a lot of the book of her dealing with all of this. 1, the Thomas situation. 2, the cauldron situation, which is just as bad as the Thomas situation, because the cauldron violated her body in a way that is irreversible as well. She's forced to change into Fae, which she never wanted to be. She has grown up hating the Fae, so now she is one, and she's forced to interact with people that she doesn't want to interact with. She is forced to be with, as Nesta calls them, Feyre's merry little band of sidekicks. The inner circle automatically has an issue with her, especially Rhys. We'll get into Rhys in just a moment. Feyre holds Nesta at a standard that isn't what she holds Elaine. She blames Nesta for more of the issues that happened at home than she does Elaine, and that has driven a wedge between their sister bond, and unfortunately I think that is going to blow up in both of their faces, and there is going to be an epic screaming battle or some kind of anger towards each other. Like, they're going to go at it in this book, and I'm ready for it. Another thing is her father was killed right in front of her. There's a reason that I think one of the, it's either in ACOSF or in a preview, she doesn't like crackling fire. It reminds her of her father's neck breaking. She doesn't like bathtubs because it reminds her of the cauldron. So yeah, she has a little bit of trauma going on. And the last part, maybe not of her trauma, but of the ones that I could think of, was she believes she's failed Elaine, and that's a huge weight on her, and she can't fix that. She believes she failed Elaine and failed being the best sister she could in protecting Elaine. And that's something that I think she really takes to heart. I think she always knew that Feyre was capable of taking care of herself, where Elaine would have died without Nesta kind of coddling her. That being said, she's gonna go train at the Illyrian camp, and I'm so excited. And I'm so excited for her to just like, she's just gonna like dig into Devlin. I just like hope she just lays him on his ass. Like, I pray that Devlin gets what is coming to him, and I can't wait for that. She's going to be really angry about the treatment of women in the Illyrian camps, and I think that is going to be one of the main plot points in the novel, of her trying to like change that, or, you know, training with them. And it's just gonna be a thing. It's gonna be glorious. Also, the training scenes between her and Cassian, A+. Also, question, what is with this weird sexual tension between her and Cassian? I'm just saying, that was the threesome scene. And I kind of want it. And last but not least, what I want to talk about is Rhysand himself, the man who can do no wrong in so many of our eyes. I was like that for a long time. But I have some issues with Rhys, and I know that not all the characters are perfect, but I have issues with Rhys in Nesta's story, and I have good reasons why. So Rhysand has never liked Nesta. I don't care what anyone has to say, he's never liked Nesta, which makes what happened at the end of A Court of Frost and Starlight so angering to me, because they bring this intervention in, and it's this whole thing, and she's gonna go to, you know, the Illyrian war camps and train, and Cassian's gonna take her. I don't see him bringing this to her, and the decisions, you know, they're gonna give her an ultimatum. Either you're gonna do this or you're gonna do this. And for me, I don't see this going in a way that's healthy for Nesta, and I don't see it going in a way that it comes from love from Rhys. Maybe Feyre, maybe a little bit, she loves her sister, you know, but Rhys, his main concern is Feyre, and that's fine, that's his mate, but there's so much anger and I feel like hatred towards Nesta that relationship, I don't feel like it's ever going to be fixed. And I think that's going to be a big issue, because if she does accept the mating bond, that's an issue because Cassian and Rhys are so close. But I don't think that he should hold what happened when they lived in the human lands against Nesta as much as he does, because he doesn't hold that to Elaine. And I think a lot of people don't hold Elaine to the same standard of Nesta, even though she did pretty much the exact same things, just allowed Nesta to be the way she was and took whatever she wanted from Feyre because she wanted it, because she is, you know, she gardens and she wears pretty dresses and she's sweet and she's a seer. Like, that doesn't make her any less guilty of what she did. So that's my issue with Rhys. I hope that the inner circle isn't tainted for me, but I do know we're going to see them in a different light, because this is Nesta's story and this is how Nesta sees the inner circle. So for me, would never be like a love interest, because me and him would just like go at it. We would just beat each other up and yell at each other, because I get annoyed with his crap sometimes, and I feel like I would be like his little sister and just yelling at him all the time. So yeah, that's my relationship with Rhys, but I still do love him a lot. But Cassian and Azriel are my bad boys. Mostly Cassian, but I have grown to love Azriel. Also, Do we think Azriel is gonna find his mate? I hope so. And I just hope that the Elaine and Azriel thing just goes away. I'm just over it. I don't want it. It's probably gonna happen because I don't want it. Anyways, those are my thoughts about what is to come in A Court of Silver Flames. Let me know down below what you think is gonna happen and any theories you have or any thoughts about my theories or anything like that. Leave them down below. I'd love to talk about it with you. And I will see you all next in Wonderland, loves. Bye.